Welcome to episode 103. There is no better time than right now to plan your vacation getaway. Don't have the time to plan? Use the friendly travel agents at 3D Travel Company by going to our website, www.whodidthatvoice.co, and clicking the Book Now button today on the left-hand side. Hurry and plan your trip today so you can travel away.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the show. Today's special guest is the voice of Wolfie from Big Bad Beetleborgs. I don't have a clip for you today, so we'll dive right into the interview. I hope you all enjoy. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice. Today on the show, I am super excited to be bringing you an interview with Scott Page-Pagter. Scott, thank you so much for joining me on the show today, bud.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to dive into a lot of amazing works that you have been a part of behind the scenes and on screen, whether you physically were on screen or vocally as, voicing for a character. But the first thing that I love to do when I have someone on the show, Scott, is get to know them a little bit. So tell me about young Scott, the boy that grew into the man he became, and how did he get into acting and entertainment and voiceover?
Well, I've been a musician my whole life. I started out trumpet in like third grade or fourth grade, whatever it was, and went on to keyboards and everything else, and guitar and all that stuff. And so I was always trying to do music, and I did, and still am doing music for a career. And that kind of led into the entertainment business, and got into doing post production at Saban in the early days, and eventually got into directing voices and doing voices on the shows. Actually, I started directing pretty soon, right after I got in there, and then started doing voices, and then eventually worked my way up to the bigger shows and went from there.
Well, we are definitely going to dive into some amazing stuff you've done. It's so exciting to be talking with you and to learn a little bit about your, your childhood and kind of your musical inclination that led into the entertainment industry as you grew older. The very first character we're going to talk about today is from Big Bad Beetleborgs, where you played Wolfie back in 1996. I absolutely loved this show because it was like Power Rangers, but for a younger audience. I felt, the way they geared it, and but it was super awesome. I loved the costumes. I loved the villains. I loved how they transformed, and of course I loved the crazy Flabber and all of you guys, Wolfie and the gang there at the haunted house. So what was it like getting to be a part of that show and to play Wolfie?
Oh, it was really fun. I did Wolfie the first season, and then the second season we had the guy who was in the costume, let him do it because all the other costume guys got to do their voice. And I kind of helped him get into the character, but it was really fun. I really enjoyed doing that show.
It was an actual show that I absolutely gravitated to because of its similarities to Power Rangers, but very unique style, very different, having these kids make a wish and come out of a comic book with their superheroes and become their superheroes. The way they transformed, getting their Beetle Bonders. And I actually have all of the Beetleborg action figures, the white Beetleborg and the main three, the blue, the red, and the green Beetleborg, along with Shadowborg. And for a while, I had all the Astralborgs as well. You actually played on Power Rangers and did several renditions from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers all the way to Wild Force. And in Power Rangers Wild Force, you actually voiced Steelon, who was an evil general for the Machine Army, and you had a bunch of cogs you were commanding in that episode. And Steelon was actually a version of Dragonborg from the Astralborgs on Big Bad Beetleborgs, and they reused the costume, repurposed it slightly, and then called him like an evil general, which was funny to see some of these characters we had known from Beetleborgs come back in Power Rangers Wild Force as villains. It was kind of wild.
Yeah, that was the last season we did it in America, and they were grabbing whatever they could to try and purge together new monsters.
Yeah. Well, I loved it because it tied in Beetleborgs in essence, even though they didn't tie the shows together. It kind of made it feel like part of the Saban family, you know, and I loved how everything was done originally with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, where, you know, everything kind of transitioned a little bit where a couple Rangers would change over, and they kept that lineage of and that legacy of the Rangers going, where, you know, a couple Rangers would change over, but someone we already knew was continuing into the next season. And so it kind of kept this like familiarity, and it just kept this, I don't know, there's something about the old Rangers that they just don't have anymore, because every season they completely change it up and there's no tie-in as a whole to the new seasons. I just love how the original shows were done.
Yeah, you know, they didn't decide to start changing the Rangers till, you know, way at maybe 5 seasons in,
Yeah.
or 4 seasons in, because they would, it was such a phenomenon. They wanted to keep the same people. When the 3 guys left, you know, the original 3,
Yeah.
They realized it didn't matter if they changed them or not.
Yeah.
They're going to keep the audience.
And they just decided to keep going. Well, I think it was good, though, especially in the beginning when they didn't just completely change the whole cast, you know, because we had known them, like you said, for 4 seasons or 3 seasons, and they had done like 300 or 400 episodes or something. It was crazy. Because nowadays we get like 20 episodes a season and it's done. And back in the day, Power Rangers was doing like 60 and 70 episodes a season. So we were getting quite a lot of content, and we really got to know the Rangers and the Zords and the Powers, and everything didn't just blow past so quick. You're like, I didn't even really learn who the people were before we were on to the next season, you know? So.
Yeah, it was more fun too. I mean, it got to be really rough, especially because I would get to be friends with the Rangers every year.
Yeah. Well, you know, back in 1993, you voiced several different villains for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. You voiced Pexter, a Plague Patroller 1, as he was called, Face Stealer, Slippery Shark, Oysterizer, and Pirate. I'm trying to remember his name. It's Pyrantis Head. Yeah, Pyrantis Head.
Oh, yeah, Pyrantis Head, yeah.
But, you know, and some of those were pretty iconic villains. You know, some were less known as others, and some of those were some of the most iconic villains on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And I feel like the villains in the original series were some of the most iconic because they were the first ones for us here in America, you know?
Yeah, they're fun. And Pexter was my first one. That was the first one I directed and did the voice to. They kind of wanted to throw me into it to see if I could do it.
And you did a good job on him. I remember him. Peckmaster for sure, or Pexter, not Peckmaster.
Pexter.
But yeah, Pexter, I remember his voice.
He was kind of my version of Rita, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Well, and then again in Power Rangers Zeo, you got to play for Tsimoto in that series, which was just 3 years later. And then, of course, Beetleborgs was in that same year in '96 when Zeo finally came out. And then you actually played a larger villain that we got to see on a more regular basis in Power Rangers Turbo and Power Rangers in Space, the villain Porto, who was quite unique looking. And what was it like for you to just continue to be working with the Saban family behind the scenes and on screen using your voice for all these characters?
Oh, I love working there. It was a great job, you know, especially, you know, we realized, especially in the end of it, how great it was. Because first off, I lived a mile from where we worked, and it was great. And plus, I made the hours, and you know, got to choose whoever I wanted to work with, and we had a really great team we liked working with. I'd love to be on this. We were on a set the whole time. We were shooting the ADR stuff upstairs from where they're shooting the shows.
Oh wow!
So
really?
all the actors were really close. Yeah, because that's the whole idea of it. It was the first time we actually combined production and post-production to an extent in the same thing.
Yeah.
Because they'd be shooting the show downstairs, and then when they're in between scenes, they could send the actors up.
Oh wow, that's brilliant.
So, you know, yeah, that was what the whole idea of how it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked fantastic. You know, I really enjoyed it. I love working with the guys. I love the cast and crew, and it's really cool.
That's really awesome. I appreciate you diving into all that, Scott. You know, I think Wolfie and Porto, probably Pexter, were probably 3 of the most iconic for me. And to realize, you know, doing the research for this interview, going, holy cow, this was all Scott. It just makes it really special to know that you had such a tie-in to the Power Rangers. And, you know, I feel like they've always kind of kept a legacy of voice actors for the most part in their shows, and especially in the original before it moved away from America when they were filming here and doing everything local. I feel that there was a lot more tie-in to things, whether it be the voice actors or the physical screen actors or whatever. And it really made it feel like a family, and there was just something about it that was so cohesive and made the show so amazing, especially in the beginning years of the first 10 to 15 seasons or so.
Well, we really had a thing in the first, you know, from the time I was involved in Tony in the very beginning, we had a very cohesive way it was going to work, and we all paid attention. And part of our jobs, at least my job, was to make sure everything made sense best it could.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like I don't know if anybody's doing that anymore, because everyone's, from what I hear, is recording their voiceover stuff from their house and just mailing it in.
Yeah.
So there's no way to see how things work together until it's too late to fix it. So I got to be there every step of the way. I reviewed every single show before it went to the studio. I worked with it in the studio most of the time between myself and David Walsh, and then I reviewed every show afterwards to make sure it was right and go back and fix things that weren't, didn't flow properly.
Yeah.
So it was a lot more, hands-on, paying attention.
Well, Scott, what would you say was some of your inspiration, or, what were some of your like favorite cartoons or favorite cartoon characters growing up as a kid? Were some of those maybe inspirational for you to be ending up doing voice work, or?
No, I kind of just stumbled into the voice work. It was fun to do, and because it's a very musical thing to me, because all the stuff for ADR and voiceover is all very musical in terms of the way how it pitches and timing and how things work together. So it just seemed like a natural progression.
Yeah.
And I can tell voiceover people I work with now, you can really tell the ones that have music backgrounds, because they really can seem to pick things up a lot quicker, and they can get the direction better, and they can understand where I'm trying to get something to go. So it's just a musical way it works together.
Yeah, well, I never thought about that musical aspect being kind of a piece that might be key in helping you with the voiceover side of things, which is really unique. I like that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Still some of the best voice people I work with now are musicians or singers.
Wow. Well, that's good to know. I've not actually heard it put that way before. And, that's some good advice for people out there that may be looking at getting into this industry. So I really appreciate your insight into it. And, and some people do kind of gear towards voiceover, and some people do just kind of fall into it like you did. And fortunately, you fell into it in an awesome way, especially in the very beginnings with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and getting to go all the way to Wild Force before, things kind of transitioned out of, the original stuff here in the U.S. and with Saban and everything initially. But it's great that you've been a part of that legacy, Scott, and you've impacted people for a long time, and you're going to continue to do so, because I still love and watch Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the original, today, and you just can't beat it, man. So
yeah, I need to go back and watch all that stuff.
Yeah, well, it's all on YouTube. Not YouTube. I'm sorry, Netflix. That's what I meant, Netflix. So they have all of the.
Well, they gave me they gave me a big box set, and they did, and part of that big box set is a big interview with a bunch of the actors talking about me, and I didn't know that was going to happen. So I got all teary when I first saw it.
Aww.
But it's very cute.
That's awesome, man. What an awesome gift. You can't beat that for sure.
Yeah. Oh, not at all. When I do conventions occasionally, I'll do a little show with behind the scenes about Power Rangers, and I'll show that sometimes.
Dude, that's awesome.
So.
Well, what is, speaking of advice, what is some advice you might have for somebody, Scott, who's looking at getting into the entertainment industry, more specifically towards the voiceover side of things? What is some advice you would give to them?
Don't do it. No, get in classes, and there's a lot of people teaching classes now out here in the LA area. Definitely, or you can do online classes, but definitely get in classes and get your acting chops up. Because if you can't act, you can't voice act. People don't realize it's not. Everyone thinks it's this really easy gig to come in and voice act. It's not. A lot of actors can't do it at all. And if you haven't got the acting chops, you're never going to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't have patience for people who can't act and try and come in and do voice stuff for me, because it's a waste of my time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that sounds tricky, but it's not. It's if you love it, you're going to do the best you can at it. So get the classes and learn how to do it, and that'll help you network and get people to listen to you.
Yeah, well, and I don't see it as being rude or being off-putting, but you're just saying you're at this point and at this level, if somebody is coming in to audition for you, you're ready to work with somebody who's professional, who knows what they're doing, and somebody that you're not having to train to do the job, but somebody who's ready to just take on the task of doing what the role is that needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I'll help people any way I can. I do all the time. I've helped lots and lots of actors get their careers going and get agents and everything else. So I mean, I'll definitely help people, but love what you're doing and do it well.
Well, it's good, solid advice, Scott, and I really appreciate it. Do you have any social media or website or way people can reach out to you, whether they want to ask questions or maybe partner with you in the future on something?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, and I have a fan site on Facebook too, and I'm on Twitter, but I'm not very good at it. And my website's kind of messed up, but you can get a hold of me on. I also have a winery, so it's called Pagter Brothers Winery, and people can reach me through that too.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. You have a winery. That's awesome.
Yeah. My brother and I started a winery about 5 years ago, and it's just built the tasting room. It's all crazy.
That's
so
awesome.
People like wine, they can come out to meet me at the tasting room.
You could do a winery class where you teach voiceover stuff and then have wine tastings at the same time.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll do that.
We'll call it the voice and wine.
Yeah. The voice of wine.
The voice of wine. I love it. Well, Scott, thank you so much for all of your awesome stories and advice so far. The last thing I wanted to ask you is, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
That's a good question. I've never thought about a legacy. I'm still surprised that people like my work and like the shows, and apparently I've touched a lot of people and helped a lot of people. So I think, I don't know, the only legacy I have is I'm glad people enjoyed what I've done.
Yeah.
So that's a tough question. I never thought about that before.
Well, I'm glad I was able to prod you with something that's a little bit mind-provoking.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure having you on the show today. Would you please give us a closeout as Wolfie from Big Bad Beetleborgs, Porto from Power Rangers in Space, and Pagter from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers?
Yes, my queen. Whatever you'd like, I'll do for you. Oh, Wolfie. Yes, my queen. What would you like me to say to you? I miss you so very much.
Have fear, the Pagter's here.
This is Scott Page-Pagter signing off from Who Did That Voice? Keep talking, guys. Woohoo!
Well, everyone, I sure hope you enjoyed today's episode with Scott Page-Pagter, the voice of Wolfie, and so many other amazing voices. And if you did, please find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram by searching Who Did That Voice. I would love to hear from you. A question you might ask yourself is, where can I listen to Who Did That Voice? That's an excellent question. You can hear us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and our website at www.whodidthatvoice.co. Click the Episodes tab and listen away. Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us next time for our special guest, Lynn Smith, the actor, animator, and character designer. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, do you ask yourself who did that voice? Well, if you do, go to our website, www.whodidthatvoice.co, and click on the Episodes tab. Choose an actor, pick their name, and see pictures from the different characters they voiced in their career.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.